In a small, forgotten town nestled deep within the fog-laden forests, there stood an antique shop known only to the most curious of wanderers. This shop, run by the enigmatic and elderly Mr. Withers, held an assortment of peculiar items: rusty keys, cracked porcelain dolls, and tattered books filled with cryptic symbols. But among these treasures, hidden in the darkest corner, was an old, dust-covered photograph that seemed to radiate an unsettling energy. The photograph, encased in an ornate, tarnished silver frame, depicted a family from a bygone era. The father, a stern man with piercing eyes; the mother, a fragile woman with a forced smile; and two children, a boy and a girl, both staring blankly into the camera. However, what made this photograph truly sinister was the presence of a shadowy figure lurking behind the family, barely visible but unmistakably there. Its eyes seemed to follow anyone who dared to look at the image, sending shivers down their spine. One evening, a young couple, Alex and Emma, stumbled upon Mr. Withers' shop while exploring the town. Drawn by a morbid curiosity, they entered and began browsing the oddities. Emma, an avid collector of vintage items, was immediately captivated by the eerie photograph. Despite Alex's unease, she insisted on buying it, convinced it would be a unique addition to their home. That night, they hung the photograph in their living room, unaware of the malevolent force they had invited into their lives. As the days passed, strange occurrences began to plague their home. At first, it was subtle: footsteps echoing through the halls when no one was there, whispers in the dark, and the feeling of being watched. Alex dismissed these events as the workings of an overactive imagination, but Emma couldn't shake the growing sense of dread. One night, as the couple slept, the atmosphere in their bedroom grew heavy and oppressive. The air turned icy cold, and the darkness seemed to thicken, suffocating the very light. Emma woke with a start, her breath visible in the frigid air. She felt an overwhelming presence looming over her, and when she turned her head, she saw it: the shadowy figure from the photograph, now standing at the foot of their bed, its eyes glowing with malevolent intent. Emma's scream pierced the night, waking Alex, who immediately saw the terror in her eyes. But the figure was gone, leaving only the lingering sense of dread. As they tried to make sense of what Emma had seen, the photograph in the living room fell from the wall with a deafening crash. When they rushed to the scene, they found the photograph face down, the glass shattered. Turning it over, they saw that the shadowy figure was now gone from the image, leaving the family alone in the frame. Desperate to rid themselves of the cursed photograph, Alex and Emma returned to Mr. Withers' shop the next day, only to find it abandoned. Dust covered the counters, and the air was thick with decay. In the center of the shop, they found a note, written in a trembling hand. The shadows cling to the living, feeding on their fear. The photograph is but a doorway. Beware what you let through. As they read the note, the door to the shop slammed shut, and the temperature plummeted. The shadowy figure emerged once more, its presence more powerful and malevolent than ever. Trapped in the shop, Alex and Emma realized too late the true nature of the photograph. It was not just a cursed image, but a vessel for an ancient evil, hungry for souls and ready to unleash its darkness upon the world. The air in the abandoned shop grew thick with dread as Alex and Emma stood frozen, their eyes locked onto the shadowy figure. It began to advance, its movements slow and deliberate, as if savoring their fear. The couple backed away, searching for an escape, but the shadows seemed to pulse and shift, blocking their path. "Alex, we have to get out of here." Emma's voice trembled with desperation. "There's no way out," Alex replied, his own fear palpable. As the figure drew closer, the flickering light from a dusty old lamp illuminated its ghastly features. A gaunt, hollow face with empty eyes and a mouth twisted into a malevolent grin. The temperature plummeted further, their breath forming clouds of mist in the frigid air. Emma's mind raced, remembering the note's warning, "Beware what you let through." She glanced around the shop, her eyes landing on a small, tarnished mirror on one of the shelves. An idea sparked in her mind, fueled by a desperate hope. "Alex, the mirror. Maybe it can trap it," she shouted, darting towards the shelf. Alex hesitated only a moment before following her lead. Emma grabbed the mirror, her hands shaking, and turned to face the advancing figure. Summoning every ounce of courage, she held the mirror up, aiming it directly at the shadowy entity. For a moment, nothing happened. The figure continued its advance, its hollow eyes fixed on the couple. But then, a strange, distorted scream filled the air, echoing through the shop. The figure began to writhe and twist, its form distorting as if being pulled towards the mirror. "Keep holding it," Alex urged, stepping beside Emma to steady her. The figure's struggle grew more violent, its movements frantic as it was slowly drawn into the mirror's reflective surface. With a final, blood-curdling scream, it was sucked into the mirror, leaving the shop in an eerie silence. The temperature began to rise, and the oppressive darkness lifted. Emma lowered the mirror, her hands still trembling. She and Alex exchanged a look of disbelief and relief, both breathing heavily. Did it work?" Alex asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Emma nodded, though uncertainty lingered in her eyes. "I think so. For now." They left the shop, the mirror clutched tightly in Emma's hands, and returned home. As they hung the mirror in place of the cursed photograph, they couldn't shake the feeling that their ordeal was far from over. The photograph was gone, but the malevolent force it contained had merely been transferred. Days turned into weeks, and though the strange occurrences ceased, a sense of unease lingered in their home. One evening, as Emma was dusting the living room, she noticed something peculiar in the mirror. A faint outline, barely perceptible, but unmistakably the shadowy figure, lurking just beneath the surface. Panic gripped her heart as she realized the entity was still there, waiting for its chance to break free once more. She called Alex, and together they examined the mirror, dread settling over them like a heavy shroud. "We have to find a way to destroy it," Alex said, determination in his voice. "We can't let it escape again." Emma agreed, but deep down, she knew that destroying the mirror might not be enough. The entity was cunning and relentless, and they were merely delaying the inevitable. They had to find the source of its power and put an end to it once and for all. Their search for answers led them to the town's oldest resident, a reclusive woman named Agatha, who was rumored to have knowledge of the town's dark history. When they visited her, she welcomed them into her home, her eyes gleaming with a mixture of wisdom and sorrow. "The shadow you speak of is an ancient evil," Agatha explained, her voice trembling with age. "It feeds on fear and despair, and it has been bound to that photograph for centuries. To destroy it, you must find the original artifact from which it was created, a cursed talisman hidden deep within the forest. Only by destroying it can you banish the entity forever." Armed with this knowledge, Alex and Emma prepared for a journey into the heart of the forest, where darkness and danger awaited them. The photograph was just the beginning, and their fight against the sinister force was far from over. As they ventured into the unknown, they knew that their only hope lay in uncovering the secrets of the past and facing the evil head-on, no matter the cost. Under the cover of night, Alex and Emma ventured into the dense, fog-laden forest, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. Agatha had given them an old, hand-drawn map, its ink faded and edges frayed. It marked a hidden path leading to the heart of the forest, where the cursed talisman was said to be buried. The forest was eerily silent, the only sound being the crunch of leaves and twigs underfoot. The trees seemed to close in around them, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The air grew colder, and a sense of foreboding settled over them as they followed the path deeper into the woods. After hours of trekking, they reached a clearing illuminated by the pale light of the moon. In the center stood an ancient stone altar, covered in moss and surrounded by weathered statues. The altar radiated a dark energy that made their skin crawl. Emma approached it cautiously, her eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. "This must be it," she whispered, her breath visible in the cold air. "The talisman must be here." Alex joined her, his eyes narrowing as he spotted a small, ornate box nestled among the stones. It was intricately carved with symbols similar to those in the cursed photograph. He reached out to touch it, but a sudden, Chilling wind howled through the clearing, and the shadows seemed to come alive. The shadowy figure from the photograph materialized before them, its form more solid and menacing than ever. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent hunger, and it moved toward them with unnatural speed. Emma clutched the mirror, holding it up in a desperate attempt to trap the entity once more, but this time it merely laughed, a sound that sent chills down their spines. "You cannot banish me so easily," it hissed, its voice like nails on a chalkboard. "I am bound to this place, to this talisman. Destroy it, and you destroy me." Realizing that the entity would not allow them to reach the talisman without a fight, Alex and Emma steeled themselves for the battle. Alex grabbed a large branch from the ground, brandishing it like a weapon, while Emma focused on the box, trying to find a way to open it. The figure lunged at Alex, its shadowy limbs extending like tendrils. Alex swung the branch with all his strength, but it passed through the entity harmlessly. The figure laughed again, the sound echoing through the clearing. Emma frantically searched for a latch or mechanism on the box, her fingers trembling with urgency. "Emma, hurry!" Alex shouted, dodging another attack from the figure. Finally, Emma's fingers found a hidden catch, and the box opened with a soft click. Inside lay the talisman, a small, blackened relic, pulsing with dark energy. As she reached for it, the shadowy figure let out a blood-curdling scream and lunged at her, its eyes blazing with fury. Summoning all her courage, Emma grasped the talisman and held it up. The figure recoiled, its form distorting as if in agony. Alex rushed to her side, grabbing the talisman with her. Together, they raised it high and brought it down with all their might, smashing it against the altar. A blinding flash of light erupted from the talisman, and the figure let out a final, anguished scream before dissolving into the air. The oppressive darkness lifted, and the forest seemed to sigh in relief. The statues around the altar crumbled to dust, and the malevolent energy dissipated. Breathing heavily, Alex and Emma collapsed to the ground, the weight of their ordeal finally catching up to them. They had done it. They had destroyed the talisman and banished the entity. But as they sat there, catching their breath, a nagging feeling of unease remained. "What if there are more?" Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this wasn't the only one?" Alex took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "We'll deal with that if it comes. For now, let's get out of here." As they made their way back through the forest, they couldn't shake the feeling that their battle against the darkness was far from over. The shadows might have been banished for now, but the memory of their ordeal would haunt them forever, a constant reminder of the sinister photograph and the evil it had unleashed. And deep in the forest, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it a warning. The darkness was never truly gone. It merely waited for the next unwary soul to invite it in. Alex and Emma emerged from the forest just as the first light of dawn began to pierce through the trees. Exhausted but triumphant, they made their way back to their home, hoping that the destruction of the talisman had put an end to their nightmare. For several days, their home remained peaceful. The oppressive atmosphere lifted, and the sinister occurrences ceased. They began to believe that they had truly vanquished the malevolent entity. Emma disposed of the remnants of the mirror, not wanting to take any more chances. Life gradually returned to normal, but the experience had changed them. They were more cautious, more attuned to the presence of darkness, and more aware of the thin veil separating the mundane from the supernatural. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, even in the brightest of daylight. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, a sense of calm washed over them. Emma curled up with a book while Alex browsed through some old photographs, memories of happier times. The ordeal seemed like a distant, terrible dream. But as the clock struck midnight, a sudden chill filled the room. The lights flickered, and the shadows in the corners of the room seemed to deepen. Emma looked up from her book, her heart pounding. Alex set down the photographs, his eyes scanning the room warily. "Did you feel that?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Alex nodded, standing up slowly. "Stay close to me." A low, guttural whisper echoed through the room, sending chills down their spines. The temperature plummeted, and their breath became visible in the icy air. The shadows seemed to pulse and writhe, coalescing into a familiar, dreaded form. The shadowy figure emerged once more, its eyes glowing with malevolent delight. It was more powerful, more menacing than before, as if feeding on their fear had made it stronger. "You thought you could destroy me?" it hissed, its voice echoing with malevolent glee. "You cannot banish what has always been and always will be. I am eternal." Panic surged through Alex and Emma. They realized that destroying the talisman had only weakened the entity temporarily. It had returned, stronger and more vengeful. In a desperate bid for survival, Alex and Emma rushed to the basement, where they had stored some of the old books they had found in Mr. Wither's shop. Among them was a leather-bound journal filled with handwritten notes and sketches. Agatha had hinted at a ritual that might permanently seal the entity, but they had not had time to explore it before. Frantically flipping through the pages, they found the ritual, a complex series of incantations and symbols meant to trap the entity in a binding circle. The instructions were unclear, the language arcane, but they had no other choice. "We have to try," Emma said, her voice trembling but determined. They quickly gathered the necessary items: candles, salt, and a piece of chalk. As the entity's whispers grew louder, they drew the binding circle in the center of the basement floor, surrounding it with salt and lighting the candles. Holding the journal, Alex began to recite the incantation, his voice steady despite his fear. Emma joined in, their voices merging into a powerful chant. The entity howled in rage, its form flickering and distorting as it was drawn towards the circle. The air grew heavy with a palpable sense of power. The candles flickered wildly, and the shadows danced around them. With a final, anguished scream, the entity was pulled into the circle, its form collapsing into a swirling vortex of darkness. The room shook violently, and the ground beneath them trembled. Alex and Emma continued to chant, their voices unwavering. Slowly, the vortex began to shrink, the entity's howls growing fainter until they faded into silence. The ritual completed, the circle glowed with an ethereal light before fading away, leaving only the faint outline of the chalk on the floor. The oppressive darkness lifted, and a sense of calm returned to the basement. Alex and Emma collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. The entity was gone, sealed away in the binding circle, unable to harm them any longer. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious. In the days that followed, the sense of dread gradually dissipated. Their home became a sanctuary once more, free from the malevolent presence that had haunted them. They knew the ritual had worked, that the entity was trapped forever. But they also understood that the world was filled with hidden dangers, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the unwary. They had learned a valuable lesson: to respect the unknown and to be vigilant against the darkness that always seeks a way in. As they moved forward, Alex and Emma remained vigilant, their bond stronger than ever. They knew that together, they could face whatever horrors the future might hold, and that no matter how sinister the photograph, the power of their courage and unity would always prevail.